Alright, so in this video, what you're going to see is me installing the AC nodes console for the KVM switch. Since I didn't actually have a KVM switch, all that I had was the console, it actually became a pretty easy install. Um, but what you're going to see throughout this video is I made a lot of mistakes in terms of how I installed everything. One of those mistakes was with how basically I'd installed all of my whole home audio system stuff way before I could even get my hands on a KVM console. So what you're seeing right now is where I made a mistake with. I didn't actually take any measurements before I put this in because the other one that I'd installed previously just installed with no problems at all. Unfortunately, this one was not like that. This one had some issues. Um, I did do some measurements after this video, but those measurements came out to about 17 inches, whereas the full clearance on the actual rack itself was about 16 and a half. So I had about a half an inch in the back that I couldn't use. So let's see. Yeah, so I think that this is where I realized that I was having issues with getting past those devices. So I had to go get my drill, and that should be coming back in a sec. Yeah, so I'm coming back with the Milwaukee. It's my favorite drill for network racks because of how thin it is and how compact. I can get it around things that my old DeWalt drill couldn't get around. This is snubby. So what you're seeing right now is I had to remove the bolts that were holding the whole home audio system into the rack. Yeah, because this rack is an older rack, it doesn't actually use the square um, rack mounts. So I had to have my hand behind it in order to catch the nuts on the other side. Yeah. So. Yeah, so I started taking apart some of those pieces and I started removing them. And this is the EQ 230. It's two channels with 30 equalizing options. Because what my intention was to begin with was before I figured out that there was a group speaker option in the Google Home system, was that I was going to use a different system. I was planning on using a whole home audio system, preferably through Bluetooth. That's what I was gonna try to use. Yeah. So you're saying me remove the MEQ 230 and the Alesis system. Alright, it looks like that we're finally getting somewhere with this. Yeah, I believe that at that point that I had taken out enough to where I really didn't need to remove all the extra pieces. So you're about to see me try to reinstall the the acnodes system again. But as I was saying before, I didn't actually do any measurements prior to this. Yep. So I had to take all the cables and run them over the top of it because what had happened was that there wasn't a whole lot of room in that rack there, and I never actually took the cables and wired these up to like being sleeves or anything. I hadn't done the sleeving process yet to this cabinet. Yeah, so right now, so there's actually two sets of ears on this thing. So there's some ears on the back. So I was trying to maneuver that system a little bit so that I could actually get that second set of ears in the back without cutting the cables. It kind of went in fairly easy the first go around. The only issue that I had, and I didn't notice it at this point, but was that I couldn't reduce the length of that second set of ears. Yeah, so I actually have a light up on the very top of that rack that I was trying to shine some light down on the system that I was working on a little better so that you could actually see what I was working on. It didn't work quite as well as I was hoping it was going to. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Yeah, so at this point, I was actually removing the device from the rack because I had realized that I had made a mistake. Um, because I was under the impression that maybe it was just stuck and that I just needed to mount it or something in the front in order to get the back part to fit. That wasn't really the case. Yep. So now looks like I'm walking to go and get the cage nuts that I was needing to use in order to actually mount the device. Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing now. Because I was still under the impression that if I just tighten it up in the front a little bit, that the back part would actually fit into place the way that it was supposed to. So initially I was only going to put two cage nuts on this device because I was going to have 2 in the front and 2 in the back. But I eventually gave up and just settled for 4 on the front. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Here's where I'm about to make that discovery of a lifetime. Yeah, that this rack doesn't have wheels on it, so it's a little bit of a hassle to maneuver it. Oh yeah, here I am trying to force it. Yeah, because it's only off like about an inch. If it was about an inch shorter, it would have fit perfectly fine within that rack. Yep. So now what you're about to see is I tightened up the nuts as much as I could, at least up in the front, in order to try to like push it forward, because I was still thinking it was stuck. Yep. Yeah. So that tray that's on the top, which is what my Intel NUC is sitting on with my home assistant. Um, that rack on top is actually what was the previous KVM switch that I had, and it didn't have any issues with mounting. So I was under the impression that they were the same model, but they weren't. What you're seeing right now is I'm removing the power supply that was for the tablet on the front of my server rack, because I didn't want to have to fight with the cable. Yeah, a little bit of a pain to get it through that cable tray. So now I'm pulling it out to see if it'll actually work. Yeah, I was thinking that if I pulled it all the way out, like it would be easier to actually push those parts in the back up to the 2 posts in the back. Yeah, so I'm still fighting it here, and I could actually make it work, but the only problem is that there's 2 little like screw holes up on the side of this KVM switch that those rails get stuck on, and I might fix that later on. But it is a lot of like cutting of the metal that I just didn't want to do. Yeah. Oh yeah. I can see the frustration in my face now. Cause see, what I'm doing right now is that I'm still fighting with the cables to try to see if I can force it to work. Because I'm thinking that okay, well maybe it's the cables that are stopping it from pushing all the way in. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, so here I am unscrewing it again because I got to take it off the rack in order to move it. Yeah. So at this point, I am unscrewing everything because I have to take it out because I'm still under the impression that there's something that I can do to fix it to make it actually slide in there a little better. Yeah, so one thing that I was thinking about doing in the future is I really want to get some Milwaukee Red spray paint and repaint the the Unify gear. I want to paint it Milwaukee Red. Maybe get some red LEDs for the cabinet. Yeah. So at this point, I've basically given up, and I'm just like, you know what? I just gotta remove this whole thing out of here because I think I see where the screw groove is up on one of the ports, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I can like force it to go around it. Yes, I had to get behind the rack this time because I was trying to fight with the cables in the back. Looks like I just about got it out of that cabinet. I think at this point I also noticed that the power cable on the KVM console was actually damaged. Yeah. But what you're not seeing on the screen right now is that I was actually inspecting the rails to find out why it wasn't going all the way. Yeah, so at this point I went and got my box with the cage nuts and more screws because I realized I was gonna have to end up using like another pair. No, actually, what I just got was the measuring tape because I needed to take measurements. This is what I should have done first. Because the problem with this was that the cabinet is adjustable to some extent. At least the posts inside it are, but it only goes so far. Because of that cable tray that I've got, it's not going to shut the way that it's supposed to. If I did move everything. I think I was double checking the actual length. Because at this point, I think I said like, well, all I gotta do is just put in like 2 extra cage nuts and screws, and it's not gonna go anywhere. And then the video stopped recording pretty close to this point. No, yeah. Let's try to fight it. Uh, yeah, the KVM console was smaller than a normal KVM console, but it's still heavy. It's still got some decent weight to it. And, yep. I'm just saying, screw it. I'm gonna get it in there one way or the other. So at this point, I don't even care that the cable's getting stuck. But I will be in a second, though. Alright, so now we got that. Yep. Now I have to get those cables. I just made my job more difficult. And that cable that you see hanging that I keep getting stuck on is the power cable that I was using for the external power supply for the G7 G7X Mark III Canon. Which was a decent size. It was like a 9-foot cable, but the actual camera is not as couldn't zoom out far enough away. So I finally get it in there. I just say screw it. And then I just put in the bolts, install all the other gear, and then that's pretty much a wrap on that. Because I think I got the KVM console on a Monday, and I waited until Tuesday to actually do the install. Yeah, at some point I'm gonna have to rebuild this cabinet again, anyways, because I got a lot of extra power cables in there from when I had other equipment in there, so it looks a lot more packed than what it actually is. Yeah, so another device I was planning on getting, and then I did some research and realized that it wouldn't even fit in this cabinet, was the UNAS Pro from Unify. I've already got a NAS, but I wanted something that would actually like, match the rest of the equipment in there, and then I was doing some reading, and it was like 18 inches deep, and I was just like, well, that's gonna stick right out the back, so I didn't want to get that. Yeah, so right now I'm testing it to make sure that it's not going to like fall or anything. So I'm kind of tilting it with my hand to see how much pressure it'll take to actually move it. So now I'm just tightening up some of the. Okay, yeah. So I'm just tightening up the bolts at this point to make sure that it's not going anywhere. Okay, this is the point where I go and get some more cage nuts. Can't remember if I brought the whole box back there or not. Thought I did, but may not have. Alright. Yep, just tightening up the bolts. Yeah, so it stopped recording like pretty soon after that. So then I noticed it was not recording, so I pressed the record button again, and now I'm just looking at or inspecting the device to make sure that everything's wired the way it's supposed to be, and I think this, yep, this is where I found out that the power supply cable was actually frayed a little bit. I knew it still worked because I tested it earlier, I think on Monday. So I knew that it powered on, so it does have power and the functions do work. So I just took some electrical tape and taped it up, and that was about it. But first things first was that I had to run this cable back there. I think that part of my concern with this whole setup was that where that cable had gotten frayed, I was kind of worried that it had gotten frayed because of the equipment that it was rubbing against. Um, so the thing about console systems for KVMs is that a lot of these console KVMs have the KVM switch built into them, and I believe that this is one of the models that was supposed to have it built into it. So all of these cables would have actually been hidden if it was installed in a proper rack. This is a very old rack, so a lot of the stuff on it is going to be kind of custom made. So yeah, the only thing that I could do was just put some electrical tape on it. So that's what I went to get. But yeah, so most KVM switches, the way that they work is that they got a bracket that comes out. This one should have had it, but it would have been a lot deeper. It wouldn't have been a short depth console. But it would have been secured, and it would have been covered, so these cables wouldn't normally get cut or frayed or chewed up or any of that. And the main reason why I actually installed it on this rack and not my other one is because this rack, with the power distribution unit already installed on it, which is what I was still waiting on at that point, the power distribution unit on this particular device, it allows you to manually control the power to individual ports. So if I don't need a port, I can just turn it off. And it saves about 20 to 50 watts if I actively monitor and manage my ports. I can tell you one thing: in Home Assistant, when you try to automate the ports to where they like turn off and turn on at certain times, it doesn't work as well as you would hope. At most, for me, when I've configured that to do that in Home Assistant, it mostly turns off ports about two if like. So I have it configured right now to shut off like I think it's like between 6 and 7 ports, and when it does shut off those ports, it only does like 2, and then it just stops turning all the others off. So I have to go back and look at what's actually turned on and turned off. So Unify does work in Home Assistant. It's just very finicky with the power distribution unit. But in Unify, if you go to their web user interface, you can actually configure those ports to turn on at certain times as well. I just didn't want to have to manage the automation in 2 or 3 different places. Because unfortunately that's the way that Google operates, and I don't like the way that Google operates. I don't like having to manage and monitor things in different apps. Yep, so I know for a fact that the console works, and now I'm just testing the screws that actually lock the console in place. Because there's 2 screws that you use to lock it, and then you can just unscrew them, and that console monitor comes out. So now I'm looking at the other 2 devices that I got to reinstall. So the denim device below it is what's going to control like the audio source, and then that audio source goes through this equalizer that I'm about to install. The Alesis MEQ 230. But that's the Nuvo right there, and that Nuvo. Okay, so instead I'm installing the Nuvo first, which makes sense, because what I was trying to do was I didn't want that console to shake a whole bunch or rock, because I only had the four screws in the front holding it in place, so I needed something that would stabilize it. So I believe that is why I used the Nuvo device. And that Nuvo device, what it does is it allows you to split your audio outs into what they call like groups or units. So if I have like a living room, then I can have that audio out controlled by like group one. And if I have like a large kitchen or a large laundry room or something, then I can do it for like group one or group two or whatever other groups I got. But the Nuvo device has four outs, so it can direct audio to four different rooms. So it looks pretty good. Looks like we're just about done with the install itself. So another thing that I've been kind of considering is maybe moving like some things over to Crestron, but Crestron really does require you to like own the property that you're going to be in. So I haven't really put too much effort into moving towards that. So I'm still very much into my Home Assistant stuff. But for those who might be interested in the Crestron stuff, you can actually incorporate Home Assistant with Crestron, um, so you can control both. Yeah, I needed some extra stuff over here. Yep. So that MEQ 230, it goes on top, and then I did eventually get a KVM system. Um, I just have it sitting on top of the MEQ with some double-sided Velcro. I've still got to wire the actual devices up. So it looks pretty good so far. Yep. Yeah, I just need like one or two of the cage nuts. I think that's what I was working on. Now this particular cabinet did have a back door to it, but the person that I got the cabinet from got rid of the back door. So what I ended up doing is that I took the door brackets off of the back so that it'll fit flush against the wall, and that's also another reason why I don't want to have to get something that's exceedingly long, because it will block off the well, it will prevent me from blocking off the air in the back. I have a fan on top that removes all of the hot air from the inside, and it gets a better seal when it's against the wall. And for those who are wondering how I have my cables like coming out, that there's only I think like two, maybe three cables that actually come out of the top, but there is a section next to the actual fan that was typically where you would have your cables drop in through, but I've actually got them routed out through it, and then I've got that set of cables wrapped up in corrugated wire wrap so that it doesn't get cut against the metal. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks like we've done a pretty decent job at this. So we're just cleaning it up and making sure that the actual console will open fully, even though you got those two other devices on top. And here I am inspecting it to make sure that that power cable doesn't get cut by the Nuvo device. Alright, looks like it's fairly good. We're just going to pull it out a little bit further to make sure. Okay. Looks pretty good. Yeah. I'm just filling out the keyboard. Looks pretty good, feels pretty good. Just closing it up. Alright, so we're pretty much good here at this point. So I just slide it back in. Yeah. Just moving the power cable at this point because I need to be able to slide it underneath this other device. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for this video. I appreciate y'all for sticking with me. If you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, just send me an email at eddygtechnologies@gmail.com. Thank you.